One of the most beautiful benefits, I feel, and in my experience, to preparing and consuming bone broth is truly its healing power on our immune system, because about 70 to 80% of our entire immune system is located within our gut.
The gut.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Welcome back to the Dr. Crockett Show. I'm your host, Dr. Susan Crockett. I am so excited to see y'all today and to bring to you one of the most requested topics that I've had this far on the show. I've got my lovely guest, Sam Blumenthal, with me today.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So now y'all are dying to know what we're talking about, right? It has to do with beauty and food and science and maybe even a little bit of surgery, although this is the show where we go beyond the scalpel or where the scalpel doesn't reach. Today, we are talking about collagen. Yes, the collagen episode. Yay! Woo! I have had so many of you guys asking about collagen. We want to know about it for our skin, our overall health. People have asked me about supplements. We're going to go over a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about specifically a natural source of collagen, bone broth.
And bone broth, exactly.
Yeah, which is a great topic for the fall. So y'all stay tuned, and I'm going to turn it over to Sam. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing here?
Awesome. So I'm Sam. I'm an intuitive eating dietitian, and the way that I love to describe the work that I do is I really work to approach nutrition from a place of self-care.
I love that.
Versus self-control.
Woo.
Now let that sink in for a sec.
Right? That needs to be like need to put a little tagline down there. Yeah.
It's really all about making eating decisions from a place of how do I want to feel in my body versus solely making eating decisions from a place of how do I want to look in my body.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
So tell our listeners a little bit about what a dietitian is?
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist.
Yeah. So there are certain qualifications that a dietitian has to experience and train for, so to speak, before they're eligible to sit for their board exam.
And you take a board exam?
We do take a board exam. Yes. It's quite tricky, but manageable. That's why I'm standing here today. So as a dietitian, we need 1,200 hours of supervised work experience.
That's a lot.
In the clinical setting, in the food service setting, and in the community setting. And once those are completed, then you're eligible to sit for your boards.
I should have known this, like as a doctor, I should know the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist. And I never have. So.
It's never too late to learn.
Never too late to learn, apparently. So you guys may notice we are in a little different setting than we usually are. We're not in the studio upstairs. This is a sneak peek into what we do before the Dr. Crockett Show every episode, which is we have these amazing meals together and conversation and get to know our guests and each other. And that's where the real energy is for the show. And then we cultivate what we're going to teach. And today
we're doing a little bone broth.
I know, in the kitchen. I've wanted to do this. So welcome. We're going to actually do this together.
Yeah. And I think a really helpful piece to kind of get started with is kind of understanding or really expanding our definition of what food might mean in our lives. So traditionally, I feel that we hear a narrative that food is fuel and food is just medicine.
Right.
Is that something you've heard of before?
I've said it a few times.
Yeah. And I believe those two things are absolutely true. And food can represent so much more than just fuel and medicine. I really believe that food can represent community, love, ritual, nostalgia, cultural exploration as well.
You actually taught me that. We met about 3 years ago, kind of our paths crossed in a kind of health retreat setting.
Yeah.
And you were the first one that really brought to my awareness the love that comes through food. And I've started talking about that with my family, like when we come together for traditional meals at holidays. And it's amazing.
How has that transformed your experience with your family?
It's made it not just sitting down and gobbling down the food. My kids are mostly grown. And, they're not always the most mindful, neither am I, but just having that awareness around the food when I'm cooking it and them coming in and out of the kitchen and I'm aware of the interaction and the love that's happening as the aromas are building. And I always think back to, oh yeah, that's a really cool thing.
That's so beautiful. And I'm so honored to hear that our experience has kind of made its way into your day-to-day life and perhaps transformed what the eating experience might represent to you. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe that there is a huge difference and balance, really, between what it means to just feel full and what it means to feel fulfilled.
Oh, well, this is your website. This is your branding.
Yes. Yeah. And it's truly, it goes beyond that as well. It's truly a mantra that I live by, because I really believe that this idea of fulfillment, as we are, working in the kitchen today, it can also be explored outside of the realm of a kitchen. And so for our listeners, our viewers, I do invite you to get curious about your definition of fulfillment, because perhaps our fulfillment can exist beyond just the nutrition and beyond just food. Maybe we can find fulfillment within what experiences and activities, like here today, people,
lovely
relationships,
so fun,
beautiful environments and surroundings.
Topher, the dog.
Yeah, my doggy's here with us today. He's very familiar with this mantra. Though I think without further ado.
Oh, so I wanted to just address one thing about balance, because my audience already knows me as whole food, plant-based, mostly. I would say mostly vegan. Not crap vegan, real food vegan. And so it may surprise some of you that I'm actually sitting here with a pile of meat bones. This is one of the few exceptions, I think, to nutrition when I think about healing and health and nutrition, where I think this is a healthy place where animal products probably do play an important part in our diet. They don't have to. We're going to talk a little bit later about how collagen is formed and how our bodies use vegetables and other things to create collagen on their own.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be this, but I thought this was an amazing idea to do for the show. So why don't we start with the bones and the process?
The history of
it,
yeah. So
the bones of it.
the bone. I love it. The bones of it. So I'll be honest. The first time I ever heard of bone broth was probably within the last 5 or 6 years. And the first time I ever heard about bone broth, I was just kind of scrolling through social media and I saw all these influencers posing with all this bone broth. And I'm like, okay, what's this hot new thing that everyone's talking about? And the truth of the matter is I was half right, because it's definitely hot, but it's totally not new.
Not at all.
Not at all. It is actually one of the most ancient recipes known to mankind. Our ancestors were making bone broth for centuries and centuries before us.
Wow.
For a couple of reasons. The first reason was to really pay homage to that animal for dying. So truly expressing a sense of gratitude by utilizing every single part of that animal, so nothing went to waste.
Right. I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of, I really feel that today it's kind of a piece that we don't traditionally think about when it comes to preparing a meal or cooking, kind of looking at each ingredient as a whole and expressing gratitude for the earth, for the chef, for the farmer, and the sunshine. Yeah, absolutely. And, the second reason was, as hunters and gatherers, it was quite rare for our ancestors to go out on a hunt and bring back exactly enough food to feed an entire community and village, which is quite foreign to us today.
Right.
Because as we've experienced, if we're running low on something, you just hop in the car, go over to the grocery store, H-E-B, get it, come back, and that's that. But it wasn't really the case back then. So what they discovered was by taking bones, placing them in water at a very low simmer for a very long extended period of time, created this very nutrient-dense and energizing and healing broth that we know and love today, which is bone broth.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've done a little bit of prep. What's the first step? What do we do?
So I think before we get into the what, I would love an opportunity to explain a little bit more of kind of the why, which is the collagen.
Yeah.
piece.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about the collagen.
Yeah.
So I think this is really fascinating from a science and specifically a surgeon perspective. So I'm a gynecologic surgeon. And as part of the work that I do a lot of work on pelvic prolapse. It's not sexy food talk, but basically bladder's falling, and it's a real problem with women. And it has a lot to do with collagen. And patients are always asking me, besides just what can I take to make my hair, nails, and skin healthier? What can I do to heal better from surgery? They're asking, why am I having problems with wrinkles or prolapse issues where things sag? And how can I be healthier? And what should I eat? What should I take? And so we have these conversations about collagen. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what collagen is anyway?
Great question and great starting point. So collagen actually comes from the Greek word kolla, and that means glue. So essentially, collagen is the glue
that holds us all together.
That holds us all together.
I know that.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
And collagen itself is the primary structural protein component in the entire human body. Our entire bodies are made of collagen, and our hair, our skin, our nails, our tendons, our bones, our cartilage, our ligaments, our entire GI tract as well is completely lined with collagen.
I did not know that.
And one of the most beautiful benefits, I feel, in my experience, to preparing and consuming bone broth is truly its healing power on our immune system, because about 70 to 80% of our entire immune system is located within our gut.
That has become such an important topic. That's something that I've really only learned in the last couple of years since I started looking beyond surgery. But the immune system and also our psychiatric serotonin, dopamine.
Yes. Yeah.
Our mental wellness.
Our gut is our second brain.
It is. It's crazy. So we're going to feed our second brain some healthy bone broth.
We are. And what's so interesting and fascinating is that the human body, we naturally make collagen.
We do. We don't just have to eat it.
No, we naturally make it.
Our bodies do it.
But when we turn about 25 years old, that collagen
5 years ago,
that collagen production starts to slow down a little bit. And that's where we start to notice some of the signs or concerns that perhaps your patients are coming to you about. And so what I find to be so beautiful about bone broth itself is that we have an opportunity to prepare a beautiful natural remedy almost from the most immediate source, and also playing a part in the kitchen and being a part of this whole process can really tie into and nourish that sense of community and connection and ritual and nostalgia even.
And tying back even in time to our ancestors and honoring the traditions.
Exactly.
So I think the time thing is a really important piece here. This is not going to be done by the end of the show. No.
I mean, if y'all are willing to watch us sit here for 24 hours, then yeah, but not really. And this is really a process that takes between 16 and 24 hours at a minimum.
Yeah.
And I'll be totally transparent with you. The first time I learned that, I felt very overwhelmed, and it felt like
anybody do that?
We have things to do, right? And it felt like a very daunting and overwhelming process until I started to find this really beautiful parallel in honoring the cooking time. Because as you'll see here, we have our bones, we have our mirepoix, we have our spices, we have our water, we have our pot back here. And towards the end of our cooking experience today, our goal is to get all of these things in a pot.
Assembled.
And you can almost imagine at this moment, once that's done, it's going to feel and look a little messy and chaotic. If you haven't been able to tell, that's my mind 90% of the time.
Well, I'm a transformation expert, so we can help you with that.
Thank you. I'll reach out to you after the show. So what I find to be so beautiful about making bone broth is it can almost represent each of our paths to achieving that transformation and clarity. Because truly the goal of bone broth is to create something that's clear. Because with bone broth, we can sip and enjoy it from a cup, but we can also use it in any recipe that calls for a liquid. So some of my personal favorite ways to actually utilize bone broth is if I'm preparing quinoa, I'll use it as that liquid to absorb flavor and collagen, cooking rice.
Yummy.
Adding to mashed potatoes.
My favorite.
Adding it to a pasta sauce, or even adding a few other ingredients to even change it up. Perhaps we transform it into a pho. Maybe we create a creamy tomato basil soup out of it. And those are just a couple of ideas. A ramen, yeah. And so the reason I say this is our goal is to create something that is clear. And each of our individual paths to healing doesn't happen like that.
It takes time to get clear.
It truly takes time. for that very slow and low simmer, to skim any of the impurities that might rise to the top, to continue to filter out any of the, for lack of a better word, gunk that might just be rising to the top, to create something that is quite beautiful and clear. So I started to reframe the process of preparing a bone broth from something that might feel kind of scary or overwhelming or daunting into something quite nourishing beyond even the vitamin, mineral, and kind of like nutrient element of it. How can it nourish us in a spiritual sense?
Really deep. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from a medical perspective, a lot of times we put patients on a clear liquid diet, especially before surgery, or if people have gut surgery, which is not what I do, but intestinal surgery, they'll be on clear liquids. So we choose clear liquids because the gunk is not in there. And so it's better, it's easily absorbed through the gut wall, right? So in a clear liquid diet is anything you can see through. So a clear, clarified bone broth certainly is a really great choice if you are doing your clear liquid diet the night before a surgery that I'm doing, or if your surgeon, your doctor says you need to be on a clear liquid diet. This is a nutrient-packed, great option for that.
Yes, I love that. And what I love about the language that you've used to describe this is kind of the nutrient-packed, nutrient-dense. A lot of my work as an intuitive eating dietitian is really working to remove the morality from what it is.
That's such a hard
that
thing.
We're eating. It is. It's so deeply ingrained.
It is.
In our culture. So you'll notice that throughout our process today. I'm not going to use words like good or bad. I do believe some foods can help our bodies feel good, and some foods might make our bodies feel not so good.
Or work harder.
Yeah. Though food itself holds no inherent moral value, right?
Yeah.
What if all food was emotionally equivalent, even if it was not nutritionally equivalent?
That is a really great point. When we talk about life coach concepts, we constantly talk about the neutrality of circumstances. This is one that's a really big, difficult neutrality for a lot of people, most of my patients, right?
Yeah. And, I think a very important piece before we do start preparing this at home is maybe by watching this video, you feel inspired. Our guests feel inspired to prepare this at home. And it can be likely that there are moments where we might not have the time, the energy, the tool, or even the resources to prepare a bone broth at home. So almost always the following question is, can I just pick it up from the grocery store?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I get that question all the time.
Yeah.
And so here's what I learned from you.
Yeah. Please tell me.
So I learned that you can, but you have to be careful what you buy, because sometimes when you're buying something that's labeled as collagen in the grocery store, it's had all the good stuff processed out of it. And so there are two that I have here that I was going to share today that are my two favorites for running to the grocery store and getting. I think you taught me about this one, which is, I ordered this off at Amazon because it's frozen and you can get all different kinds of broth from them. And there are some vegan options that they have too.
Ooh, and we'll talk about that too in a moment.
That'll be awesome. And then this one is really cool. The brand name is Fond. These are just what I like. This one comes with spices in it. So they have 5 or 6 different spices, really high quality broth, really good stuff.
Delicious.
So I think your point about having compassion on yourself and not having to do everything like the right way or the only way is a really beneficial thought for our audience to hear.
Yeah. I feel at the end of the day, any kind of nourishment is still self-care. And so again, if you're not in the space to create bone broth at home, go to the grocery store
and get some bone broth.
And you can get some bone broth. The fact of the matter might be that maybe that bone broth is a little less nutrient dense than one that you can make at home. And that is okay. Yeah. We deserve to invite in a lot of that self-compassion for any circumstance outside of our control that might get in the way of allowing a simmer process of 16 to 24 hours.
Right.
Though if this experience is of value to you, perhaps we carve out the time to do that. And we'll talk about storage as well, because you can do this once and have a whole bunch of it for months on end. So I think this kind of is a perfect opportunity to begin preparing our bone broth. Yeah. So one of the biggest questions I'll leave that there.
Okay.
One of the biggest questions that I get when it comes to preparing a bone broth is, what is the best kind of bone? And again, I really want it to come down to what is accessible for the consumer and who's preparing that bone broth. So if you can find beef bones, chicken bones, you can use lamb bones, you can use
anything,
any kind of bone, any kind of animal that has bone, tendon, ligaments, cartilage, skin, can make a bone broth.
Awesome. So today we're using beef femurs that I picked up from the butcher yesterday.
Yeah, and you'll see that there's quite a bit of marrow that's going to contribute to a lot of collagen as well. And something very specific about these bones that you'll see here is that they're roasted.
Right. We roasted them before.
Yeah, and why was that?
I don't know. That's a great question. Why?
This is a great opportunity to explore. Because it tastes better.
Yeah.
So we're getting this like nice caramelization on the bone, on the bones themselves, and this is going to contribute to a really rich depth of flavor. It's not necessary, but it would be something I would recommend if you're really looking to get something incredibly flavorful and comforting and heartwarming as well. So ideally, we want to start off with about 3 pounds of bones for about 1 gallon of water. And I like to use that as a guideline rather than a rule we have to follow. That's just kind of like a nice sweet spot to start.
Okay.
So once we have our bones roasted, by the way, in the oven at 425 for as long as it takes. And I say that because depending...
different sizes.
Exactly, right. These are a little bit thicker. I drizzled a little bit of a high heat cooking oil. We used avocado oil today. If we were using chicken bones that are a little bit more brittle, maybe the cooking time can be about 15 to 20 minutes. These are in the oven for about 40 to 45 minutes to get that nice caramelization. The next thing we have is our mirepoix. So
what?
Mirepoix.
Mirepoix.
Yeah, Mirepoix.
Okay.
And it is, I want you to think of it as kind of the holy trinity of French cooking. It's like your standard soup base, so to speak.
All right.
So traditionally, that's going to be our celery, our carrots, and our onion. But I want you to take note on some nuanced uniqueness we see here. What do you notice about some of these?
It's got skin and roots, and they're not perfect.
Yes. And that's kind of the goal. Any scrap that you have that you might be collecting throughout the week, or if you're not collecting it, I'd recommend you start saving it in like a little Ziploc bag. You can throw it in your freezer to really use the odds and ends of absolutely everything, because this is essentially the garbage pit of melting nutrition.
Okay.
So with that, we have our onions, our celery and carrot.
And red pepper.
And red bell pepper. And so red bell pepper is a little addition here because we don't even have to stop just at our kind of holy trinity. I like to add in some other ingredients as well. And you'll notice with this red bell pepper, let's see. Where is the, oh my goodness, I really hid it in there. We'll find it. But it is the center, including the seeds.
Oh, okay. Everything's going in.
Everything is going in because we're straining. Here we go. We're straining everything at the end anyway. And so I don't see a...
I have to show them the strainer.
Oh, we love
because they're not going to get to see this.
Yes.
Right? So at the end, y'all check this out.
But there is a must.
What?
When you're straining this, put a bowl in your sink.
Yeah.
It obviously makes sense. There was a time where I didn't, and I just poured all of my bone broth liquid in the strainer and it went down
the drain. Oh, no.
24 hours down the drain.
Oh, no. And all this beautiful food. Okay.
Yes.
So bowl in the sink. When we're done, that's how we're going to strain it. You're not going to get to see that part because but I wanted them to see the strainer. So fun.
So if you want to go ahead and, would you like to add in our mirepoix here?
Mirepoix.
So we have literally the stems, the skins, odds, ends. We want it all. And again, we don't have to stop there. One of my favorite secret ingredients I like to add is the core or an entire apple.
Yum. So we have a
Honeycrisp apple.
Honeycrisp. They're so yummy in the fall.
I believe that this adds a very kind of like subtle floral undertone to the broth. So the choice is totally yours. Some other things that you can add are eggshells.
Eggshells. Wow.
So it's not in terms of flavor, but
calcium.
We'll get a little bit of calcium, making it more nutrient dense. And in the membrane of eggshells, some research is showing that there's a certain type of collagen called collagen type 10. And there's over 20 different kinds of collagen, which I think is a whole series of podcasts later.
Future episodes.
But what some research is showing about the membrane on the inside of eggshells is it can really help to support nerve function.
Wow.
So throughout the week when you're making your scrambled eggs, if that's something that you do at home, you can save those eggshells and just throw them in
this pot because we strain it out anyway.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay.
Some other ideas, jalapenos. You can use the little cutie peels like clementines.
Orange peels.
Ginger root as well, turmeric root if you'd like to. And dehydrated mushrooms if you'd like to for a little bit more of an umami punch. And those are just a couple ideas.
Awesome. Cool. Well, now what?
Now we have our spices.
Okay.
So what do you notice about this garlic?
I was dreading getting the garlic because I hate peeling it. And then all you did was whack it open and throw everything in.
And if it doesn't come apart, oh no, it's coming apart. But if it doesn't come apart for you at home, you can just throw the whole thing in there. I like to slice off the top a little bit just to expose a little bit more of that flavor. Because again, the 16 to 24 hours that this is cooking, it's going to get nice and soft and flavorful.
And we can throw all this in too.
All of it in.
All of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, here, I have some pre-cut, pre-diced garlic. And Sam's like, oh no. Well, I want the real one that you got.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to mention something about my nails real quick because this is important. So my nails look really awful today. Y'all don't look too closely to them. And I refuse to wear fake nails because the reason I have crappy looking nails today is because I decided after a good 10 years to quit wearing fake ones and to let my own nails grow out because my collagen has gotten stronger since I've become whole food plant-based. My hair has never looked like this. And the base of my nails is finally not so brittle. So they look bad while they're growing out, but they're going to be strong and beautiful. And so we're just owning the in-between transition today.
We're owning in the in-between transition. I love that. After hearing you mention the plant-based piece, before we get into our spices, I would love to talk about plant-based collagen.
Yes.
Is there such a thing as plant-based collagen?
No.
No? Why is that?
Because collagen is a animal protein.
Yeah, it comes from bones and tendons. And like, if there is a plant that has
bones and tendons and ligaments.
Call me up, let me know. But no, traditionally, if we see plant-based collagen, what this is really describing is that there are certain plant-based ingredients that can almost promote the collagen production that started to kind of go to sleep on us.
Yeah. Oh, I wasn't going to mention this, but we are going to mention it. So I haven't really promoted this very much yet, but I have a vitamin line. It's called Virtuosa Vitamins. You can find it through drcrockett.com. Our whole philosophy about vitamins is that we should get most of our nutrients from our food by eating a broad whole food type of diet.
Yeah.
But where we need supplementation, that's what we have on the site. So it's not a whole lot of things, but one of them is a collagen builder. So it's not a collagen supplement. It is ingredients that help build healthy, strong nails and healing. But there's even something better than that, which is starting with the raw food, right?
So the way that I like to think of these builders, to use your language, if our collagen's like sleeping on us when we're 25, I want you to think of these collagen builders as like little alarm clocks waking up our collagen. And these are the ABCs of collagen production.
ABC.
ABC. A is for vitamin A. These are your orange and yellow fruits and veggies.
Okay.
B is your bulbs and berries. So your bulbs can come in the form of onions, garlic, shallot, fennel, and then your berries, blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries.
Okay.
And then vitamin C. And vitamin C can be found in dark leafy greens, citrus, berries, and red bell pepper. A serving of red bell pepper has more vitamin C than a serving of oranges.
No way. That's astonishing.
And beyond just flavor and just making use of this red bell pepper, there is another reason or intention that we're adding the red bell pepper to this bone broth.
Yeah.
That's because when we, for our body to best absorb collagen, it likes to be paired with vitamin C.
I did not know that before today.
So now we're getting our vitamin C through the form of our red bell pepper to ensure that when we consume this bone broth,
that it has a carrier to help it in.
Exactly. And
so cool.
If you're making this at home and you don't have vitamin C to add directly into the bone broth, no stress. as long as we're getting vitamin C throughout the week. Again, that can be in the form of your dark leafy greens, your berries, and your citrus foods. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in here, but we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone today. We were going to go ahead and add in our spices.
Okay.
So we have our peppercorn, and if you want to add that in, these are just like light recommendations, the whole thing. Yeah, these are light recommendations. These are kind of what we're preparing today is what I like to call my base recipe. And so if you have other spices or herbs at home, feel free to add them in. Again, I try to keep it pretty like neutral across the board because I want to be able to use this as my home base to come back to use this as a liquid in any
Lots
recipe.
of things. In fact, you mentioned that we are not using salt.
Correct.
Because we're going to keep it unsalted so that you can use it in foods that may not want that much salt in it. And salt it when you use it.
And then of course, like you have each of us have like the discernment to say, okay, at the very end, after it's all prepared, add like 3 of them in there. After it's all prepared.
Bay leaf.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can always add salt to taste.
Right.
So, and if anyone wants to add salt while it's cooking, there's nothing morally wrong about that.
About that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little thyme.
And then we also have some rosemary over here.
A little apron. Okay. I love rosemary. That's my favorite herb. Maybe. I think it outdoes basil. I think it outdoes the basil for me.
Especially in the fall time.
Right.
This feels a little bit more fall. Mint for me is more summer.
Yep.
This is a little bit more fall.
Is that it?
Ooh, we do have one more thing. A little bit of a lemon, which we have right here. And so the intention for adding a lemon is not really for flavor. We need a little bit more of acidity, whether that's coming in from a splash of apple cider vinegar or a little squeeze of a lemon.
Okay.
And this is to help make the minerals from the bones be more bioavailable.
Oh, okay.
So this can be some of the calcium and some of the phosphorus.
So that our bodies can absorb it better.
Exactly.
Lovely.
And to be honest, if you don't have apple cider vinegar at home, like I just want to remind you, I don't think our ancestors were
apple cider vinegar
trying to find Whole Foods to get some apple cider vinegar. So it's not like a make or break thing. I just noticed that we had a little bit of lemon back there. And because we have like a little bit left of the side here, I have no problem adding that in. If we were to add in a little bit more or like the entire lemon, it's going to taste a little bit more bitter.
Okay.
Just a little bit of a lemon, you can always just throw the rind in there.
Okay.
And now we'll add the water.
Gee, water.
Oh, this looks so beautiful.
This is amazing. Okay, one thing I want to ask you about is one time when I did bone broth, I cooked it too long and it got this funky flavor to it, like overcooked vegetable flavor. Like how do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm curious,
how do you prevent that?
What kind of bones were you using?
They were probably turkey because I did it after a Thanksgiving dinner.
So a key point here when it comes to making a bone broth is really not only the simmer time, but your bone to water ratio with very little meat on the bones.
Oh, okay.
If there was quite a bit of meat, the longer it simmers, that liquid is going to smell and taste a little rancid.
Yeah.
And so traditionally, meat fibers have more pro-inflammatory properties, and bones themselves have more anti-inflammatory properties. And so again, that's really not a matter of good or bad. We need a little bit of inflammation. If I were to walk off the set here and trip and scrape my knee, I need a little bit of inflammation to my knee to help repair.
Pull in the repair. Yeah.
Right. So the reason I say this is it can be very beneficial to just ensure that you don't have to literally work your fingers to the bone to get all of the meat off. But if you do leave a lot of it on there, it's going to make it less anti-inflammatory.
And more soup, and you can't cook it as long.
Correct. And then if you do cook it for the recommended time that we've talked about, it's gonna taste rancid, like through your experience.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now what?
Now we're gonna put a lid on the top.
Here's the lid. Got a lid.
Beautiful.
Okay. And then it goes on the stove.
Goes on the stove.
Do we have to boil it first?
Typically when that's done, it's to kind of speed up the cooking process. But because we're letting it simmer
we can
for
just put it on
16 to 24 hours, you can just put it on low right away. And then throughout the cooking process too, there might be a little bit of evaporation from the liquid. So as often as you can, when you're home, just kind of giving a little peek and babysitting it and adding a little bit more water as you need. We want that water to be right above the bone and vegetable line that you see. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that's it. Yeah.
This has been super cool.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's so great. I wanted to let our viewers know a couple of things. One is it okay if we post the recipe as a download?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will post links to everything that we referenced on the show. There'll be links down below for you on the YouTube channel and on the podcast page. And then let's hear about where our viewers can find you.
Yeah. So right now I'm on Instagram and on TikTok. Fun little bite-sized mindful eating and intuitive eating tips. So on Instagram, you can find me at fulfilledandfull.rd for registered dietitian. And on TikTok, it's just fulfilled and full.
Okay. Oh, I almost forgot the best part. Oh, look.
Oh.
Look.
So bam, 24 hours just happened
Went
like
by.
that. Now what, let's explain what this is.
Yeah,
What do we have here?
This is actually a plant-based, and it is not I can't call it bone broth. It is a plant-based broth. It does have some bulbs in it. It has mushrooms and garlic and ginger and a little bit of olive oil.
Delicious.
And there's shiitake mushrooms. And so I made this earlier today and thought we would have a little toast and
Cheers
to our broth.
Oh my goodness.
So good.
I taste the mushroom.
Right? It's so yummy. All right, you guys. Well, maybe that'll be another show when I show you that. But that's all we got today.
So good.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please tune in next week